Minecraft Championships is a team competition showcasing the skills of Minecraft's best players in 8 different events. MCC 11 is being held October 24th, and if you want to watch, I've included a link in the description below. As you could guess from the title, this is my prediction video, where I'm going to tell you about the team's compositions, where they might place, and why they might succeed or struggle. These are my opinions. They're based in statistics, but they're finalized by assumptions because nobody knows what games will be played and the order they'll be played in. Some fans may think I have an agenda, but I'm ranking people lower and higher simply because someone's got to be first and someone's got to be last, not because I'm a fan of any particular creator or their content. Feel free to like or dislike the video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought of my predictions. Red Ravens. With 2 A-tier players in Captain Sparkles and PeteZahHutt, Red Ravens would typically be in a position to challenge for the top 5 spots. But while their other 2 players have great potential, both Tubbo and Nihachu are relatively inexperienced in MCC. I think that Tubbo is closer to A-tier given his first-time performance in MCC 9, and his second score from MCC 10 was on a fun team with Tommy in it, making it easier to discount. As for Nihachu, it's still unclear how much she can grow her score from her MCC 10 performance, and the team would need a significant improvement from her to move up in the standings. The team's strongest base are the PvP games, but they also have above average scores in movement. If this team has a weakness, it's in the building games, Bingo, Build Mart. Considering this, I see them likely coming in 6th place, although they could finish as low as 8th or possibly as high as 4th. With the right games, multipliers, and improvements from their new players, they could approach the top, but I have trouble seeing them getting past some of the stronger teams. Orange Oozes. Scrappy team. With an S-tier player in Kratzy and a potential A-tier player in CPK, the Orange Oozes have a slightly stronger player base than the prior Red Ravens. However, their third player, Minimuka, has a B or C tier score history and has only played in 1 of the last 4 events. The final player, Finster, has also only played 1 prior MCC and scored just under 1600 in that event. As with the Ravens, it's hard to say how well these inexperienced players will do, but given that factor, it's difficult to see the kind of upside they need to beat out some of these other teams. This team's strength is definitely in PvP, with all 4 players being above average and Kratzy being particularly good. In movement, this team is also above average, with the top 3 members mixing in occasional stellar performances with above average ones. But movement was a challenging skill set for Finster in MCC 9. Building is not a particular strength of this team, and if Bingo or Build Mart come late in the event with high multipliers, this team could definitely suffer. Considering all this, I like this team in 7th place, with a range from 4th to 9th. With one weak area, it's pretty easy to see this team slip down the rankings, but with the right combination of PvP and movement games, they could do very well. Mustard Mummies. Any team featuring Quig has a strong base to start from. Add to that the A-tier Smallish Beans and the C-tier Pearlescent Moon, there's every reason to expect a strong performance. However, there is an unknown on this team, Dan TDM, a newcomer to MCC. Dan has played in MCM and has some significant competitive experience in the game, but a learning curve is still to be expected for his first MCC. The biggest issue I see between this team and success is their mixed base. While Quig is an all-around player, putting up high scores in PvP, movement, and building, Pearl trends higher in movement games, and Beans is better at PvP. While this combination can lead to solid overall scores, it makes a very difficult path putting up an outstanding score and cracking the top 4, particularly with a new player in Dan. While there may be a path through the event this team can use to mitigate their weaknesses and realize their upside, it'll take inspired leadership from Quig as well as favorable games and game order. For this reason, I see this team as a likely 5th place finish with a potential range between 3rd and 8th. Lime Liches, the tournament dark horse. 3/4 of this team are part of the MCC 9 champion Blue Bats. After a single event hiatus, Fruitberries is back and looking to build on his massive scoring from MCC 9. Similarly, Falsesymmetry is looking to solidify herself in A tier, with B tier Green and C tier Rendog rounding out this Hermitcraft heavy group. Green has the most upside and the most to prove, as this will be his first time on a team with legitimate dodgeball shot. With 3 players from the Hermitcraft server, this team will trend towards the building games, but their PvP upside is also quite high, as Fruitberries is a top tier PvP performer, and Rendog is the only below average player. Movement games will be somewhat challenging for this team, but if they can avoid them, they have a legitimate chance at second place. That said, Fruit, False, and Ren all had their MCC 9 scores massively inflated by their survival games performance, and Fruit and Ren will need to match those scores if they hope for this team to be a success. While False responded well in MCC 10, nearly matching her MCC 9 score, this will be her first time being the number 2 player on a dodgeball competitor. The main problem this team faces is that their significant weakness is the strength of several of the other top teams who will be pulling for movement games. With this in mind, I see this team as the unfortunate 3rd place finisher, but they could range anywhere from 1st place all the way down to 4th. If they do get into dodgeball, they have 2 battle-tested shooters in Fruit and False, and could definitely take the win in the entire tournament. Any team with PeteZahHutt is going to have a competitive edge. Pete is the top S-tier player in the event with the 2nd highest individual score and the highest individual scoring average of all time. His most experienced teammate is King Byrne, who typically ranks in A tier on stronger teams. However, after Pete's last win at MCC 10, Scott has nerfed Pete as hard as anyone's ever been nerfed, pairing him not only with a new player in Connor Eats Pants, but also a one-time player in James Charles. Not knowing Connor's abilities or James Charles' strengths, it's hard to know which direction this team needs to move towards in order to be successful. Given Byrne's strength in PvP, what would be the natural direction to take this team? Overall, they are closer to average in movement and slightly below average in building. But the biggest trouble for this team is that no team with a true novice player has ever done well in MCC. And the last time a team with 2 rookies did well was Fruit and Fundy's team in MCC 6. Those were not typical rookies, in totally different circumstances. With that said, I have to put this team in 10th, with a potential range from 10th all the way up to 6th place. Cyan Centipedes. On early assessments, everyone thinks this team is one of the strongest, and they'd be right. With an S tier in Techno, an A tier in Tapple, a B tier with Captain Puffy, and C tier Kara Corvus, this team mirrors the composition of most teams that have historically won the event. The difference between this team and most others is that in combination, this team's members feature no significant weaknesses. Techno and Tapple are strong in PvP, but Puffy is also above average, and Kara features an average performance. In movement, the team is similarly strong, with Techno in the top tier, Tapple being above average, and Puffy and Kara being both average movement competitors. Building games would be this team's biggest weakness, with all the players being average to above average. The biggest question remaining for this team is who's going to lead them and make the plans for each game. Techno is a capable leader, but has a habit of letting his teams prepare without him, and can at times be undercommunicative. I can't say if any of the other players is ready to take on the mantle of leader, but even with that said, there's only a slight chance that this team could score poorly, and I see them making 1st place, with a potential range from 3rd place all the way up to 1st. Obviously, with 2 strong PvP players like Techno and Tapple, they're heavily favored against nearly any other team if they do make it to Dodgeball, and are very likely to win the entire event. Aqua Abominations. This team is in the unfortunate position of having 4 returning players, but still having one of the weakest compositions of all the teams. The top player, Krinios, is all-around talented, a high A-tier player, but Solidarity Gaming, In the Littlewood, and Catherine Elizabeth all rate as various levels of C-tier player. This team is actually a slightly modified version of the MCC 8 Lime Llamas, having a slight downgrade in Krinios replacing PeteZahHutt. This team is average in PvP and movement, but falls slightly short in building. It's a little sad to say, but I honestly have to put this team in 9th, and I really can't see them placing any higher than 6th. Blue-Black Cats. The statistical choice for the top team in the tournament, and likely winner, the Blue-Black Cats feature H-Bomb in the S tier, Scott Major and F-Whip in the A tier, and Shovel in the C tier. Concerning their game abilities, in terms of PvP, while the team isn't of the highest caliber, the fact that they have 4 good shooters should be an asset in nearly all PvP games. Their movement scores are well above average as well, with H-Bomb featuring near the top, and their building abilities are also solid. In fact, while this team has no games they're specifically favored to win, they're strong everywhere. They have no particular weaknesses. H-Bomb's leadership, coaching, and cheerleading always help keep his teams near the top of the pack, and I think this team offers an opportunity for H-Bomb to put himself firmly in S tier. This team is very likely to take 2nd place, if not 1st, and anything outside of Dodgebolt would be a disappointment. And with an ace in H-Bomb, and 3 other capable shooters, they'd have every reason to expect to win. Violet Vampires. A team with a question mark. And the question is, will they throw? That's what everyone's asking about this team. Fundy came out in MCC 6 and showed his worth with an S tier score in MCC 7. He then put up B tier scores in MCC 8 and 9. Tommy Innit has similarly shown that when he's engaged, he's capable of putting up high A tier numbers, but he's just as comfortable having fun scoring anywhere from C to low A. Wilbur Soot is Mr. Consistent, putting up a B tier average through the last 4 events. Quackity is the unknown player. But the real unknown is whether this group of friends from the Dream SMP will play seriously or for fun. Their PvP skills are legitimately good, and their movement abilities are a close second. Building, while not a strength, shouldn't hinder them either, and I can see either high scores or the total throw happening. What seems most likely, though, is a low-pressure environment, where friends have fun, scores are good, but not great, and this team slates comfortably into 7th place. However, it could range anywhere from 10th all the way up to 4th, depending on game order and selection. Fuchsia Frankensteins, the other dark horse. Essentially, this team is the MCC 7 Purple Pandas that made 3rd place, with a few key differences. The Dream Team, Dream, Sapnap, and George, have all had time to learn the games of MCC and acclimate themselves to the tournament environment, as shown by their continual improvement. Dream now is clearly S tier. Sapnap has fluctuated between A and S tier scores depending on his team, and George has put up A tier scores in his last 2 events. The other difference between the Pandas and Fuchsia is replacing tournament veteran Sylvie with Carl Jacobs. Carl is a new player who is also relatively new to the game, bringing a lot of uncertainties into this team. This team is quite strong in PvP, arguably stronger in movement and solid at building and bingo. So the principal questions that remain are what games will be chosen, what order they'll be played in, and how Carl Jacobs will perform. The funny thing is, Carl might not even matter that much. Dream, Sapnap, and George are the strongest trio in the tournament. The balance was to add Carl to the mix, as one of the tournament's newest players. But if the trio get the right events and perform to their historical peaks, they'll be able to get into Dodgebolt with a minimal contribution from Carl. The difference from him will that he'll essentially determine whether they get 1st or 2nd. But if one of the big 3 has a bad event, Carl having a good performance becomes even more important. The final consideration are the actions and behavior of Team Captain Dream. While he has improved over the course of his MCCs in his leadership and planning abilities, Dream still has a tendency to attempt profitable but risky plays, which can often leave his team at a deficit if he dies. You can see examples of this in MCC 9, Sands of Time, and survival games. And multiple PvP events showcase Dream's tendency where he tunnels in on a high-value target, only to die in the attempt or to a subsequent 2 or 3v1. Dream is an excellent leader and planner, but his team will perform better in this tournament the more risk-averse he is as a player. If everything goes right for this team, they could have a simply monstrous score and land in first place easily. But considering the multiple factors that all have to go right, they could be as low as 4th. And that's what I think is going to happen. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. This is a new channel, and every little bit helps. Hope to see you again for the next MCC.